wants more than one that freaks out.
Well, yesterday we got to the Mishnah. What topic is this? This is Yud Hamid Beis. Yeah. The Mishnah had said 3 cases. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. First case was a Ktana, that she was less than 3 years old, and therefore, even if she had relations, it doesn't affect the Basulim, the hymen, and she's still considered a Basula. Second case was a Katan, less than 9 years old, that had relations with an adult. Adult over here doesn't mean adult, just means that she's already 3 years old. So that also, the Mishnah says, Rameir says that that's still considered a Basula, still considered a virgin. Muka states that hymen was removed by not by means of relations, but here it says a stick or any kind of instrument. That means it wasn't through an act of prohibition. So Rameir says that all these cases are still considered a basula. The Chachamim seem to argue on one case, which was the mukaseitz, and they say that if she doesn't have basulim, if she doesn't have the hymen, so that even if it was not done through via, also it's not considered basula anymore. The next Mishnah, the next part of the Mishnah says that if she would have Nisuin, which in contrast to Erusin just means that Kedushously gave her a ring or money, and that was the act of Kedushin. So then the Mishnah said before, she's still considered a Basula, and when she remarries, so then she's eligible for a Ksuba of 200. But here, once she had Nisuin, even if she is still a Basula, even though she's a virgin, but she already was the second stage of marriage, which means, what the Gemara is going to say, it's brought into the house. If she's brought into the home of the husband, that's already considered Nisuin, even though they didn't have relations. If she remarries, means he divorced her or he died. So then now she's not considered a basula anymore, even though she's physically she's a virgin, but still ksuba samana. Be'ein lahen tanis basula means if she finds out later on that she was not a basula, so he can't complain and say that I didn't mean this and I don't want to give any kind of ksuba. And the last part of the Mishnah was that if she's a basula. No, Elan, again, even if she says she's a basula, and when he marries her, she's not a basula, and he wants to say that I don't know you anything, but since she was already in a sua, so he can't claim that, and she's still eligible for whatever she's eligible. She's eligible for 100, so she's still eligible for that. And the last part of the Mishnah, if a woman who converted, and then when he marries her, he says she's not a basula, and she's not a basula. So he can't say that I don't have to pay any ksuba. She says last ain't no time. And even though she was found not to be a basula, he can't say that it was a mistake. That this woman that converted or was captured or was redeemed as being a shifcha, and all these people before the state, and while she was a goya, or while she was captured, or while she was a shifcha, so then there's a chash that she had relations, she was raped or willingly. So if it was after age 3, after age 3, so then again, ksubas amana, she's not considered a basula, only a mana, and even if she says I'm a basula later on, if he finds that she's not a basula, so there's no complaint, and he still would be chayiv 100. That's as far as we got yesterday. I wrote to the Gemara. I'm going to them around. This is really the Mishnah. The Mishnah talks about a katana bala gedola, that if it was a boy less than 9 years old that had relations. So the Mishnah said that according to our mayor, she's still considered a basula. Here it says asam mukaseitz. Maybe we'll try to highlight that. That's the statement that the Gemara is going to talk about. Katana bala gedola asam mukaseitz, which means that according to Rabbanan, the same mukaseitz is only 100. So then this also would be 100. It means the Mishnah seemed to say 3 cases. Rabbanan seemed to argue on the last case, which was going to ask the kasha right away. And they only argued on the mukaseitz, and they say mukaseitz that there was no bia at all. So then she's still considered a basula, and it's 200. But if there was a relation with a man, even though he's less than 9 years old, so the Mishnah sounds like the Rabbanan would agree to a mayor that it's not considered a bia at all.
What is the statement exactly? It doesn't seem like he gave it. He didn't say that it's matayim or anything, right?
He says it's a mukaseitz, whatever you hold about a mukaseitz. If a mukaseitz is a machlokus in the Mishnah, that's preparation in the Mishnah, machlokus in the Mishnah, Samuka states is 100 and 200, right? That's what
Oh,
I'm
I see.
saying.
Now he's saying.
So he
that
says
a
that
katan
Samuka
who-
states, according to our mayor, it's 200, fine, but according to our bonus, it's going to be 100. In the
I
Mishnah,
see,
if you
he's
look in
just
the
defining.
if you look in the Mishnah, it looks
Yeah, yeah.
look in the Mishnah, it looks like there are three cases, and Rabban only argue on the third case. So he says no, that the Rabban are arguing on the second case also, because Katan Abala Gedola is going to be same as the Muka Seitz. If Muka Seitz is 100, so too a Katan Abala Gedola is also going to be 100. Tosfos points out that the whole sugi is only talking about that the hymen is still there. It means that this katan, here's the Tosfos over here, Tosfos on top. That's why he's asking below Heshe Besulim. Means if the Besulim was removed with this bia of this 8-year-old boy, so then it's pasha that it's like a mukaseis. That's not a chiddush. What's the difference? How it was removed? If you hold mukaseis means that the Besulim were removed, and even by instrument. So it also makes her down from 200 to 100. So then it's pasha that a katan that had a bia. What's the difference if he's 8 years old, 7 years old? What's the difference if it manually removed, even if it's not considered a bia? So says also he's talking about that. Nothing, it wasn't removed. That lo heshe basula, that the basula were not removed, but the fact that it was a bia, that she had a bia with a human being, even though it was not a mature man, it was less than 9 years old. It's enough to consider her the same status as a Muka Seitz, and therefore the Rabbanan who say that a Muka Seitz is 100, so this case also, this Katan Abal Gdol is also going to be 100. That's why we just said in the name of Rav. Kemite Kamid Shmuel Omar in Muka Seitz B'Basa. Shmuel argues, that was Rav, so we'll have Machlokas over here. Maybe we'll try to do that over here. Shmuel argues. Shmuel says, Shmuel Omar in Muka Seitz B'Basa. When reviewed this first, and this was the name of Rav. Rav said, Katan Abal Gdola some Muka Seitz. And Shmuel argues. Shmuel says that in Muka Seitz B'Basar, since it was just the fact that he had a bia, but if the Basulim were not removed, so then the Rabbanan would agree. So the Machlokes is Rav and Shmuel, if the Rabbanan are arguing on case number 2. The Mishnah had 3 cases. The first case was a Sumi Bas Gimel. She was less than 3 years old. Nobody argues over there. We had a few times already that less than Bas Gimel, less than a 3-year-old, it doesn't affect the Basulim. And the third case is a Ferish Machlokes in the Mishnah. Muka Seitz if it's considered a Basula or not. And Machlokes Rav and Shmuel is the middle case. If the Rabbanan argue on Rav Meir and say that it also goes down to 100. Some say the same thing over again. The same thing, just in the first version, it was Rav Yehuda who was quoting everything. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Rav, and then later on he said it to Shmuel, and Shmuel argued. But some have the same machlokes Rav and Shmuel without bringing Rav Yehuda into the picture. Some learned this machlokes independently, means independent of Rav Yehuda. Katan Abala Gdola, Rav Amma Esam Muka Seitz, Shmuel Amma Eno Muka Seitz B'Basar. The same thing over again. If we want, we can put it in parentheses that this doesn't affect anything. This is the same thing over again. Machlokes Rav and Shmuel. The Gemara is a kasha from our Mishnah because it has in our Mishnah the 3 cases, and they only seem to argue on the last case. Masav Abashaya, Gadlut Shabal Aktana, Bekatan Abal Akdola, Muka Seitz, Ksubasam Basayim, Divra Meir. It's quoting the Mishnah we just had. Muka Seitz, Ksubasam Mana. Doesn't that say that they're only argue on case number 3? They don't argue case number 2. And according to Rav, they argue on case number 2 also. This Katan Abal Akdola, the Rav says that they argue on that also. They don't seem to argue. The Gemara answers, that's surely we all agree about that. That if she was less than 3 years old, so then nothing happened. That's the Gemara's mashal for somebody, for a man, for a girl less than 3 years old that had relations, that it's just like someone will put his finger into his eye, that it starts tearing, but then it gets back to itself again. So too, the hymen would regrow. So therefore, everyone knows that the bia and a less than a 3-year-old girl doesn't affect anything. The second
Mikan is the
less than 3 years old.
less than 3 years old.
This is you can't tell the words here, but it's a quote from someplace else. Understand the side. It's probably over there. It explains it means less than 3 years old. The next case, Katan Abal Gdola Samuka Seitz. That's what you have to stick in. That Mishnah that says he's telling you how to learn the Mishnah. It's not just 3 cases. It's saying that the second case is like the third case, and the third case is a machlokes. Katan Abal Gdola Samuka Seitz. That bia that a boy less than 9 years old has the same effect, not physically, not that it removes the hymen necessarily, but it has the same halachic status as a mukaseitz. And what's in a mukaseitz? Mukaseitz gufa plukta der mei rabbanan. So you can learn the Mishnah either way. So the Gemara finishes that sugya. We could close the sugya over there. That's the end of that sugya. Okay, end of the sugya. Machlokes if Rabbanan argue on the case of less than a 9-year-old that had relations, according to Rav, they argue over there also and say that it goes down to 100. New sugya. This whole sugya we're going to learn now is talking about if it was an unknown. I mean, still now we just said what the status of, let's call it a mukaseitz. The case of mukaseitz, she doesn't have hymen because it was manually removed by instrument, whatever it might be. It might have done by whatever reason it happened or by accident, but she fell, whatever it might have been. But it wasn't true relations. So machlokes are main rabbanan. That's the value of this girl and not anymore. 200 goes down to 100. But not going to go into the subject if he didn't know. It means there's a thing called mekachtos. Mekachtos means you bought something and you didn't mean to buy that. Let's say there are two products. There's grade A and grade B. And the grade A, of course, is more expensive. This costs $5. This costs $4. So you wanted to buy the grade A, and they gave you the grade B. So
And you paid $5.
So surely you don't have to pay $5. It's only $4. But there's another subject to talk about. They didn't want this.
Mm-hmm.
So that could be the deal's off. I didn't mean to buy this. I want grade A, but I don't have grade A. So I don't want to pay $4 either.
Give me the whole thing.
Give the whole thing back. So this subject is going to come to lo hikabah. Means he didn't know. And now he says, this is not what I wanted. But it seems from the little bit that I saw that the subject is not talking about that he wants to call off the marriage. Sometimes there's called kedusheto. Sometimes the marriage is off. I didn't mean. They got the wrong. That's not what I meant. So the whole marriage is not a marriage, and then he doesn't even need to get. But it doesn't seem that that's going to be the sugi over here. Here the sugi is talking about only the money aspect. So there's a woman whose value is ksubasa masayim, and then there's someone who's not so. Her value is only going to be ksubasa mana, and that's going to be the sugi of the Gemara that he meant to get someone who's more valuable, call it, and by mistake means he didn't realize that he gave him the wrong thing. He doesn't want to call for the marriage. He doesn't want to say that I wouldn't have married her, but he wants to say that I shouldn't even be chayiv the ksubasa mana. That's going to be that sugi. This is the bottom of the page. That's going to be the sugi more or less. That if he didn't know about it, then there's a different claim that maybe it should go down even from being 100. Maybe it's nothing. So that's the choice. It's not going to be right. So that's how it starts. But we're getting to the sugya of lo hikabah. The main point of machlokes b'shehikabah. The machlokes is when he knew about it. Means he knew that she's a mukaseitz. And there's a machlokes. And then the issue of the machlokes, the Gemara is going to explain the Mishnah while we go along. The Gemara is going to explain the Mishnah also. This we could also. This is found in the Mishnah. That Rav Meir says that. Just like a girl who gets older than 12 and a half, and she also, as the girl gets older, so then the hymen gets more and more separated. It could be that it even comes out completely. And Bogeres, even though she's not considered, let's say, by a Kohen Gadol, we have that it wasn't simple that a Kohen Gadol was allowed to marry a Bogeres. He's supposed to marry only a Nara because she's not so much a Basula. The closed up Basula is only until the age 12 and a half. But there, everybody holds that a ksuba is going to be 200. Nowadays, girls don't get married at 12. They get married at 18, 19, 20, 21. So, but the halach is going to be no matter how old she is. She still has ksuba masayim. That doesn't take down the ksuba, even though she's not a full basula. Full basula is only until 12 and a half. So Meir says that's what a mukha says. We don't care physically the hymen is still there. So Meir says she's fine. Mukha says there was no beard that was done, so she's still considered a basula. And Rabbanan v'dami l'bula. Rabbanan say that she doesn't. That's worse. It's worse than a bogeres. That since the hymen was removed manually, however it was. I'm using the word manually because lack of a better word, but it means that it was done by an instrument and not or by fall, cut, whatever it might be.
Cut, and I was going to say no. That's a
no. Cut and don't get about that. That might be worse.
Okay,
that was a Suvida's hand.
Not by bia, not
by bia. So that's the machlokes in the Mishnah. But the main point of Rami Bachama is to say is that lo hikabah. This is the real sugi over here. That lo hikabah divi akol v'lo klum.
That means the whole thing is off. What is v'lo klum?
So that's what I wanted to introduce. It doesn't mean the marriage is off, but it means he doesn't have to pay any kind of ksuba. There's no
in terms of payment.
In terms of payment, that he stays married without a ksuba, because since he says that this is not what I wanted to get. So not even though a mayor says that it's 200, if one say that it's 100, that's only if he knows about it. But if he doesn't know about it, and then he's surprised and he says there's no psulim, so they come and they prove that it's a mukha says, But since he didn't know about it, so then he doesn't have to pay any ksuba. That was the statement of Rami Bacham,
In other words, she's married without
without a ksuba, right? That's what it seems to say. The Gemara is the kasha, but now the Gemara just goes back. This is not our point. It's not Rami Bacham's point. But once the Gemara mentioned
without the, she has ksuba, but it's worthless, or what is
no,
it?
there's no ksuba. No klum. He doesn't have to pay ksuba. It's not going to stay like that. If you want to know the maskana, but
No, I just want to
this-
know, so like, what would it mean in terms of, I thought a husband and a wife.
She,
has to
but
know
that's
the
only if
ksuba.
she has ksuba. There's some cases where she doesn't have a ksuba.
Okay,
This is the case. She doesn't have ksuba.
What is maskana?
Maskana means the conclusion. Just to point out that the next Gemara here is not the subject of Rami Bachama. It's just explaining the Mishnah the same way the Gemara brought it in before Hikabah. We'll come back to Hikabah, I guess, again. Rav Meir, Amami Dami Lo Bogeris and Dami Lo Bula. Why does Rav Meir say that? This is no Hikabah. Back to Hikabah. This is the parentheses, just back to the Mishnah again. That Rav Meir says that Mukaseis is still eligible to 200. Why? Why does he compare it to a Bogeris? Let him compare it to a Bula. So he says, no, Bula Savad Bamaisa Bidei Adam. Hello, Savad Bamaisa Bidei Adam. That Bogeris, nothing. I'm sorry, a Bula, Maisi Bidei Adam. That was something that was human. But here, that she's a Bogeris. I'm sorry, 1 second, a Bula. But a Mukaseitz is different than a Bula because it wasn't Bidei Adam. So therefore, since it wasn't through a human being, it wasn't a Bia. So therefore, May says it still has the quality of a Lusula. Rabbanan, why do Rabbanan compare it to a bula more than a mukaseitz, to a bula more than a bogeris? Bogeris lo savid b'maisa klal. Ha savid b'maisa. The bogeris, nothing happened. Just naturally, as she got bigger, the body grows. So then the basulim became less and less. But not that anything was done to her. But the mukaseitz is worse. Then why just explain about different? Where's the room for machlokas? A bogeris everybody holds is considered 200, and a bula everybody holds is 100. And the machlokas is what's the status of a mukaseitz? In some ways, it's close to a bula, the fact that something was done, but it wasn't. Something was done, not like a bogeris that nothing was done to her, but it's not as bad as a bula because it wasn't done by a human. So that was really could have been found in the Mishnah. Has nothing to do with Rami Bachama. But now the Gemara, I think, goes back to the subject of Rami Bachama. So that was Rami Bachama's explanation of the Machlokas Ramein Rabbanan. Only if he knew what he's getting, but if he didn't know what he's getting, then there's no ksuba at all. Most of Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman was asking a kasha now on Rami Bachama. It says in Mishnah, he omeres mukaseitzani, who omer lo chi elo drusa sishat. They got married, and he finds that she's not a basula, she's not a virgin, and she says because she agrees she's not a basula, but she says that it's only the result of being a mukaseitz. I would never had relations with any man, but there was something happened, whatever, she fell, whatever it might have been, and that's the reason why she has no hymen. And he says no.
I'm sorry.
What?
Drusasi.
Drusa means that the result of the word drusa, I don't know.
It's like trampling.
Right. So it means trampling, or it means like we use it also the striking of a man. I don't know why the Gemara uses this lashon over here. Maybe because he wants to say that it was from znus. It wasn't a marriage. It was so it's like
It seems like the striking of a man is muka.
No, it means that mukas means that it was not. No, man means bia, means that it was the result of a striking of a man.
Each means having a bia.
Having a bia, yes. And he's saying that you had relations. Not that means she was thought to be a basula, and she's found to be a bula. And she says, "You're right. I'm not a basula. The hymen is missing, but that was because I was a mukaseitz."
And he says no.
And he says no. He says no. He doesn't know. He's just saying I don't know. But his kind is maybe not. Maybe it's because you had relations.
It says low. Doesn't low mean no?
Yes. But he does. Yes, it means not. It doesn't mean he doesn't know. How does he know? He doesn't know. He's just saying. Who says? So low he means you want to be able to say that I owe you 200. Maybe not. Maybe drusa sish. Drusa sish means that she had relations with a man, and the reason why I use the word drusa probably is because it was a rape. It wasn't going to be something that marriage is not called drusa sish. But the fact that it means that it was struck by a man means that there was a bia over here. So there's a Mishnah machlokas. Like here comes this is a Mishnah that talks about a dispute between the husband and the wife if she's eligible still to Masayim. He married her thinking that she's a basula, and now he finds out. Now there's two sides to the story. Either two possibilities: either mukaseitz or drusasish. What does he claim? If she's saying mukaseitz, it must be that she's saying that she has a claim. the Gemara is pointing out that this Mishnah openly says that she is eligible for some ksuba. If you're going to say that he didn't know about it, there's no ksuba, like Rabbi Chama, then what is she saying? Her claim
Because
must,
it wouldn't matter.
right, we say, okay, well, Mukha Seitz, you don't get anything anyway. The fact that she's claiming Mukha Seitz and he's saying Grusa Sish, that means that she's saying I'm owed money, and he's saying I don't owe you, or I owe you less. But she has to be saying something. If Rabbi Chama says that even a Mukha Seitz, but he didn't know about it, so you're not eligible to any ksuba, so there's no argument. She also saying I don't deserve anything. So that's the Gemara's question. Here it says that it's a mission later on. Where does it say? It says on the side that Yud Gimel, not far away. So it says, "He omeres Mukha Seitzani, who amalochi el Drusa Sishat." What's the din? Rabbi Gamliel, Rabbi Elazar Omrim. That means that she wins. We don't really care. Here's not the subject who wins, but the point is that she's saying something. She has a claim that says that I deserve to get ksuba, and she's saying Mukha Seitz. And the case is obviously that they didn't know beforehand. So Rava argues on Rabbi Chama, but Rava is going to give in a little bit. He's going to say, according, I'll just say it outside, I don't see it inside. According to Rav Meir, there could be a difference between Rav Meir and Rabbanan. You could be right according to the Rabbanan. The Rabbanan say that a Mukha Seitz is a pagam. You see that she goes down from 200 to 100. There's a pagam over there. According to Rav Meir, Mukha Seitz still deserves 200. So the Gemara is going to try to answer the kasha by saying that here, that it says that she deserves, she's saying, I'm a Mukha Seitz and I deserve something, is according to Rav Meir. Rav Meir, who doesn't consider a Mukha Seitz downgraded, so she's saying, I'm a Mukha Seitz according to Rav Meir. It means according to Rav Meir, it makes sense, or Taina makes sense, that I deserve ksuba. But according to Rabbanan, the Gemara is going to say, it could be right, that since you see Rabbanan say that a Mukha Seitz is downgraded, she's less than a Basula. So there he says, I wanted to get the 5, grade A, I got grade B. So then I don't have to pay anything. That's more or less what the Gemara is going to answer.
Because we're assuming that he expected to be marrying a Basula.
Right. Well, yeah, this case is that here you see that he didn't know. He didn't know that she would. This case of the Hiomeris, the Machlokas here means that he didn't know.
Means that because he had a time.
Yeah, right. And he thought that she's a Basula. Now she's saying it's true, I'm not a Basula, but the Mukha Seitz, and he says Drusa Sish, but it wasn't that they knew about it. They knew about it before. So good morning, he's saying, I didn't know. What didn't you know? The case was that he thought that he's getting a Basula, and now it was found she's not a Basula. The question is, why is she not a Basula?
So according to the Chachamim, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. Is that what we're saying?
We asked
her
the
claim doesn't make sense.
Right. You see here that she wants something. She's saying Mukha Seitz and I get something.
And
so the Gemara is answering what? And Rabbi Chama says no. So the Gemara is going to get an answer. Rabbi is going to answer that according to Rabbanan it wouldn't make sense, but we could say this is going according to Rabbi Meir, and according to Meir it does make sense because Rabbi Chama, even though Rabbi Chama himself meant even according to Rabbi Meir, means Rabbi is not coming to explain Rabbi Chama. He's arguing, but he's giving in a little bit that according to Rabbi Meir, according to Rabbanan you could be right, but according to Rabbi Meir you're not. That this mission is going to go according to Rav Meir, and according to Rav Meir that a Mukha Seitz is not downgraded. So over there, she doesn't go over there. Even if he didn't know about it, she's still eligible to the full 200. But according to Rabbanan, that a Mukha Seitz is 100. If he thought he's getting a Basula for 200, and now it comes out that it's a Mukha Seitz was only worth 100, then he says I was fooled and I didn't mean this, and I don't owe any ksuba. So that's how the Gemara is going to give in a little bit to Rami Bachama. Different than Rami Bachama, but it still is giving it a little bit. That according to Rav Meir, you're right. There's no difference if he knew about it or he didn't know about it. According to Rav Meir, even if he didn't know about it, it's Masayim. And this Mishnah could be going according to Rav Meir. When she says Mukha Seitz, the Mishnah is going according to Rav Meir that she still deserves 200, and even low hikabah, because that's not considered to downgraded. But according to Rabbanan, there's a difference between hikabah and hikabah. If you know hikabah, if he knew that she was a Mukha Seitz, her value is only 100. And if he didn't know, he thought he was getting a basula, and he got a Mukha Seitz, then velo klum. That's how Rava answered the kasha and argued a little bit on Rami Bachama, but he gave in a little bit. That at least according to Rabbanan, you could be right that since he thought he's getting a basula worth 200, and he got really a Mukha Seitz was only worth 100, he didn't mean to get that, then he doesn't have to pay any ksuba. Till there's good. Now the Gemara says, how the Rava? Then we
still holding by Rabbi Meir?
we're not coming to pass like we're saying that according to Rabbi Meir, even if he didn't know about it, he thought she still gets 200 because it's not considered a downgrade. But according to Rabban, that's considered a downgrade. So then it goes from 2 to 1. So he didn't know about it. If he knew about it, then it's 1. If he didn't know about it, he thought he was getting a 200 and he got a 100, so then he doesn't have to pay anything. But we're just trying to figure out if Rami Bachama could be right. And we're going to pass like to Rabban, not like Rabbi Meir. So according to Rabban, it could be true that below Klum. But now, Hadabei Rava. Rava now is going to, he retracted, El Charata. And he's going to argue with Rami Bachama even more extremely. From here till the end of the page, the Gemara is going to show Harava retracted, and he's going to say that even according to Rabbanan, also she doesn't lose the ksuba. Rabbi Yochanan said, even according to Meir, she loses ksuba. And Rabba gave in that at least according to Rabbanan, you can be right that lo hekibah lo klum. And now Hadabe Rabba is going to retract, and we're going to show that Rabba holds that even according to Rabbanan, she doesn't lose anything. Just to get the halacha, the Gemara is going to come out that there's no difference hikibah lo hikibah. Even lo hikibah, she still gets 100. The Mukha says, according to Rabbanan, that's 100, even if he thought he's getting a basula, and he gets a Mukha says, still it's 100. It's not such a big difference. There is a difference. You see that if he knew about it, so this is 200, this is 100. But if he thought he's getting a basula and he got a Mukha says, it's not enough to say, I didn't mean this, and therefore I shouldn't pay any ksuba.
Knew about it means knew that she was a Mukas 8.
If he knew, right. If he knew she's a Mukas 8, then it's 100. But if he
then it's 100 lachatchila.
Right,
And if he didn't know,
then surely it's not going to be surely it's not going to be more than 100 because
it's
that's
still going to be 100.
right. And Rabbi at this point was saying that if he didn't know about it, then it goes down to 0.
Yeah.
And that the Gemara is now going to prove.
Meir is still saying it's 200.
Rabbi would say 200, and
That's the
Rabbanan. That now the question is how about Rabbanan?
When they
So
say
Rabbi-
100, what does that mean? That's right.
Right, is it even lo hikibah? And so far Rafa said was at this point the Gemara said that according to Rabbanan lo hikibah is a lo klum.
Mhm.
And now it's going to be Hadabe Rav. Now, Rav, this is Rav till now. We could put Rav over here also. This was El Amar Rav. This was El Amar Rav. Now the Gemara is going to change. From here on, the Gemara Hadabe Rav, the Rav is going to change and say that even according to Rabbanan, also it doesn't go. It doesn't lose everything. Hadabe Rav. The rest of it till the bottom of the page is going to prove this. All this that Rav retracted. The Tanya. Case of Asa Shemra. What's the case of Moshe Shemra? The pasuk talks about a case of Moshe Shemra. That man got married, and then he says that she's not a basula, and then the pasuk goes on to say if it's found that he was right or that she was right, that's the din of Moshe Shemra. Well, the bezdin, the Almighty comes to bezdin, the husband comes, the new husband comes to bezdin, and he says,
Sorry, if there's a case where he's right, it would be considered Motzi Shemra as well?
No. The term Moshe Shemra means when we found out that he was wrong, that he was lying. So then he was taking it, and then he's punished, and he's malchus and hundreds, and he has to stay married to her. You're right. So I was probably inaccurate when I said it could be a Motzi Shemra both ways. But the case was
we're talking about Motzi Shemra saying she's not a virgin.
Right. That's the way he comes to Bezdin and says to his father-in-law Ploni, okay, that we know. That's the pasuk that he comes to Bezdin and says to his father-in-law, I didn't get Ploni, like Reb Shver, my father-in-law, I didn't find that your daughter's a virgin. So the Mishnah says, it's a brisa. It's a brisa. Now the words don't make sense. Those are the words of the brisa. If there are witnesses that she was mazana while she was already married, so she deserves a ksuba mana. That doesn't make sense. If it's found that she was zinsa tachtav, she's chayiv skila. And meish edim she's zinsa tachtav, bas kilahi. You take her out to stone her because she was mazana as a married woman. So that can't be. So we have to erase this. That can't be. That's true. That we know. That if she was mazana, we found edim that she was mazana as being a married woman, so then she's chayiv skila. Zinsa may kora, if we found out that yes, she's not a basula, but she was mazana before they got married, yesh lak suba mana. So here the case was he didn't know, right? He didn't know. He thought she's a basula. Comes to Bezin, she's not a basula. So it says she still gets a mana. So this is even more serious than we were talking about. We were talking about that she's a mukaseitz. Here it comes out that she really was a bula, and that says that he thought she's a basula, and it comes out that she's a bula.
Meikira means
Meikira means from original, before he was married. Before he was married. So he thought he's getting a basula, and it comes out that she had relations with somebody before marriage. So she's not chayiv skila, but it says that he starts to pay her 100. It means he stays married. All these things are not a mekachto, not a kedusha torah. So that's at the beginning of there. I just wanted to say that the whole sugi doesn't start talking about that the marriage is off. I don't need to get. I didn't mean this. It's not so extreme. But is the ksuba go down? Now surely he's not going to give ksuba 200 because she's not a basula. That's pashut. But even 100. So here it's also we're talking about that he found she's a mukaseitz, and that even that Gemara spoke about maybe everything is downgrade, maybe nothing.
Yeah.
because he didn't know about it. Here the Gemara is even more extreme, that even if she comes to she was really a bula, she had relations before marriage, and she wasn't be worth more than
He
100,
thought she
but
was
he
the
thought she's a
first.
psula. Even so, it still says she doesn't lose everything. It's still a psula money. And the Gemara is going to talk about that now. We'll get back to the Mukha says. We're trying to highlight that. Everything is going to be a question over here, but that's what it seems to say at this point. Rav Sheshes said, here you see, Kansa, this is Rav Sheshes saying, or Rav Chiba, Rav Sheshes.
What
that-
is Zosomeris?
This means to say, it means we could derive from here, we could derive from what we just said, that if he married her, assuming that she's a basula, and it comes out that she really was a ba'ula, not a mukaseh, it's mamash a bula. Also, she still deserves a ksuba mana. That's what it says. It says, according to the way we fixed it up,
Mhm.
since a meko, yesh a ksuba k'tan. That's what it says. This was, who said this? Rav Chiba, Rav Sheshes. Rav Nachman asked the kasha. Mosiv Rav Nachman. It says in the Mishnah, Hanosi es isha v'lo la basulim. He omeres mesher stani nenasti v'nistach v'sadei. Huam belochi ella anshelo ivastich v'yemeki makatos. That's the Mishnah. It says somebody married a woman and he sees she's not a basula. And again, he thought that she was a basula. He sees she's not a basula. And she claims that I was raped after I was married to you. Means it was true that there was between the Eris and the Nisuin. He married her. He did Eris a year ago when he first did Kedushin, and then he did Nisuin now, and he finds that she's not a basula. So she says, you know when it happened? It happened during this year. I was raped during the year of our how would you call it, betrothal of our Erisin. And that's the word Erisin is so bad nowadays because the Hebrew language made it to mean engagement. It's so confusing. Everyone has to take it out of the dictionary. What? Lexicon. That Erisin, you go to an engagement party, you call it a shidduchin. They call it Erisin. It mixes everybody up. Again, so okay, but Meisher Stein and Nasi means that I was raped after our betrothal, after our kedushin. So it's like your bad luck. Like when I got married, I was truthful. I was a basula, and you married me as a basula, and now it's nistach v'sadei means like your field was flooded, like I'm yours already, and it happened that I got raped, but it's your loss. It means I'm still deserve the ksuba masai because when we had kedushin, I was really a basula, and he says I don't know. I don't know. It doesn't say I don't know, but that's the point. In Bezdin, the time is that maybe not. Maybe you were raped before the Kiddushin, and the thing was a mistake. And therefore what? That's the question. And therefore what? She says that I was raped after the Kiddushin. He says maybe before the Kiddushin. So if she's saying after Kiddushin, she totally says I'm worth 200 because at the time I was a Sula. And what is he saying?
He's saying mekatos means that I didn't bargain for this. I don't pay anything.
Oh, so Levi Yaakov is saying that the word mekatos sounds like I don't pay anything.
Where is the word mekatos?
Right here. If you look at the screen, mekatos. He says that maybe you were raped before Kedushin, and then the thing that I bought was a mistake. My acquisition was a mekatos. And that's the words of the Mishnah. And now the Gemara goes, Rav Nachman. Rav Nachman is saying that, what does that mean? Like Levi Yaakov said, less like cloud. She doesn't
Cloud is not part of the
right. That's the parashanut. That's the editorial. The less like cloud. So doesn't that say before? Here's the case where he didn't know. He thought that she's a basula, and it comes out according to the claim that she was really a ba'ula. It seems to say that she doesn't get anything. So this is attacking Rav Chia bar Avin Rav Sheshes, who said that you could derive from the first brisa that if he married her thinking she's a basula and she really is a ba'ula, she still gets 100. That's Rav Nachman's kasha. That this Mishnah seems to say clearly that if he thought she's a basula and she really was a ba'ula, less laklal. It doesn't say the word less laklal. It says mekachtos. But doesn't that mean less laklal? That was the kasha. So we're really off we're off our main subject. Our main subject is about a mukaseh. We went into a much more serious discussion that not she's a mukaseh. She came out, she was a ba'ula. And Rav Sheshes said she still deserves 100. And I was asking, no, in this case for sure, she doesn't get anything. That was Rav Nachman's kasha against Rav Chia bar Avin and Rav Sheshes. Rav Chia bar Avin said back to Rav Nachman, who asked the kasha, they changed the word lahu to lay. He said back to Rav Nachman, that's a kasha because it says mekachtos, it means less laklav. Efsher Rav Amram, b'chol doli ador, yasvi kam Rav Sheshes la shmaita, the kasha lahu. Fishoni, my mekartos, nami mosayim, avamona isla, v'adam with lesla klal. Like, what's bothering you? Don't you know that Rav Amram and all the great of the generation was sitting when Rav Sheshes said the above statement? Rav Sheshes said the statement that the concept of cheskas pasula, when him says bula, she still gets 100, and they had the kasha that you just asked. They asked the kasha that it says mekartos, and everybody said that's not a kasha. Mekartos means that she doesn't get 200, but still gets 100. What's the kasha? Just because it says mekartos means less laklal, it means she doesn't get 200. He thought that he's getting a basula. At the end, she's a bula. So it says mekartos. Mekartos means he's just claiming that I only have to pay 100. She's claiming you have to pay 200 because the rape happened after I was kedushin, and he says maybe it was before. And it's mekartos. What does mekartos means? That didn't mean 200, but 100 yes. So they're arguing if the word mekartos has to mean that I don't owe anything. Rav Nachman assumed that the word mekartos means I don't know anything. Rav Chibravin said that Rav Amram and all the Gedolei Hador, they were sitting and they said it's not a kasha, that mekartos means that I don't have to pay 200, but I do have to pay 100. So he wasn't impressed with the kasha. So Rav Chibravin was not impressed with the kasha. Or Rav Amram called Gedolei Hador, they said it's okay. That even the basula, when him says bu'ula, he thought he's getting a basula, he got a bu'ula, he's less to pay 100.
Because in the context of what they were arguing, we can't say that it means nothing. Is that what we're saying?
Rav Sheshes said she still gets 100. That's what Rav Sheshes said. He derived it from the Brisa before.
And now he's getting attacked.
And he's getting
We're
attacked.
pushing
And
him pushes them off and says, in the context,
what I mean context, the word mekartos doesn't have to.
it doesn't have to
The
mean
word
everything.
mekartos doesn't always mean that the whole thing is off, right? And that's what they said. And so why getting so excited? All the Gedolei Hador, they agree that it can mean
200 or 1.
that it goes down to 100. Doesn't mean it goes down to nothing. But Rava didn't like that. That we're still in the middle of all this. We're really going back. That's the point. That's the point out. We're all. Maybe I should really highlight this. That we're all going back to Hadabei Rava. We're coming to explain the Hadabei Rava. All this is going to explain. It's going to take a long time until we get there. But all this is coming to explain that Rava retracted from what he said before. Well, we're on the way. We didn't get that yet.
Okay.
But now the Gemara continues. But Omar Rava. Here's Rava. Rava's back on the scene again. Yep, Rava. Man, the kamosiv, shapir kamosiv. The kasha, good kasha. I mean, don't push it off and say mekartos means 100. Mekartos means nothing. Mekartos legami mashma. So Rava didn't go for what all the Gedolei Hador said. Rav Amram told Gedolei Hador that they said that it's okay. Mekartos means it goes down to 100. No, nothing doing. The
It's
word
a good
mekartos,
kasha.
it's a good kasha. He's on Rav Nachman's side. Rav Nachman and Rava, they say the word mekartos means nothing, and concept of cheskas pasula with him says bula doesn't get anything. The Ella kasha. So I'll go back to the kasha. It means Rav Sheshes. Where Rav Sheshes get it from? Rav Sheshes. If we go back, it goes back to this thing about Ketzur Asa Shema. It says if Meish Edim Shezin. So this was the original text over here. It said something that didn't make sense, and we had to try to figure it out. This was the brisa. Meish Edim Shezin Satachta V'Yesh Laksuba Mana, which didn't make sense, and we changed it that Meish Edim Shezin Satachta V'Skila and Zinsa Meikor Yesh Laksuba Mana. That's how we changed it. That Zinsa Tachtav is Yeshla Ksuba Mana. And that's where Rav Sheshes derived that you see this Amshi case, he thought she's a Psula, she's really a Bula, she gets a mana. Now there's a kasha now because the Mishnah says the opposite. Rava, if you say Mekachtos means you lose it, so that means you lose it. So how could you reconcile the Bryce that Rav Sheshes brought in? So Vela Kasha Hach, what are you going to do with the Bryce we said before? If they edim that she was Mazana while she was married, then she's Chayiv Skila. Since the Meikor Velo Klum. Like Rav has just finished saying, that mekartos, everything goes off. If you married her thinking that she's a basula and she's really a bula, she doesn't get anything. And now stick this in, something, the Rice says something about ksuba mana, so stick in, and say smukas eitz, yesh lo ksuba mana. Which word? Obliged, she's obligated. So the Bryce said, we're trying to figure out the Bryce in green over here, that originally said the words don't make sense. If there are witnesses that she was Mazana while she was married, she's Chayiv Skila. Nothing to do with Mana Masayim, she gets killed, capital punishment. So you have to say something about the Bryce. Before the Gemara tried to explain that it means if she was Mazana before she got married, it's found out that she was Mazana before. So then she gets, then the Ksubas Mana. But now the Rabbah doesn't agree to that either. Rabbah holds that you don't get the money, you get nothing. So what did the Bryce mean when it said Ksubas Mana? There was some case, you have to invent something, you have to edit something. It says Ksubas Mana. What you can do with that Bryce that says Ksubas Mana? You don't agree to this amendment to say that this case is Mana because this case.
Didn't he say that?
We didn't get there yet. We didn't get there. We're gonna prove now from this
I know, but
statement,
he was more maker at some point. Is that what I'm hearing?
here's what it says. Here it says that according, in order to fix up the price, you have to say, Nimse smukas eitz, yesh lak subamana. Here we got to it now. That the way to fix up the price is going to stick in the bottom mukas eitz. The price was talking about Beula, Nimse is Bula. That yesh edim shezinsa. But that wouldn't make sense because in the yesh edim shezinsa, if it comes out that she was mazana while she was married, chayv skila. Even if it was before she was married, she doesn't get any kesuba. When did the brisa mean to say that there's going to be at least a mana? You must stick in mukas eitz. Then says mukas eitz, yesh lak subamana. So Rav is talking, and Rav says that the brisa should read that if he thought she's a psula and it comes out that she's a mukas eitz, she gets a mana, and that's against what Rav said before. Before Rav said at least according to Rabbanan, she gets. At least according to Rabbanan, she loses everything. According to Rav Meir, she still gets the 200. She wasn't downgraded at all. According to Rabbanan, at least Rav said that lo hekibov lo klum. But now we're going to say that Rav retracted, and he also and he argues on Rav Meir all the way that even according to Rabbanan, also she doesn't get downgraded to nothing. But Rav Huda Amar Rabbanan lo hekibov lo klum. Rav originally said that according to Rabbanan, if he thought that she's a psula and she's a mukas eitz, it goes down to nothing. And here he said not like that. Here he said that even if, according to Rabbanan, who says it is considered a downgrade, but she doesn't lose the 100, she still has 100. From what he originally said before, Rabbi said.
What he originally said.
Right. Here was Rabban Yellow. He said, and he retracted. And that's the maskana, and that's the end of the sugya, that we pass like Rava, that both according to Rameir and according to Rabbanan, she doesn't lose everything. The only case she loses everything is only if she was a Ba'ula. If she was found to be a Ba'ula. If she was thought to be a Basula and it comes out that she was a Ba'ula, then Mekachtos, which some even say over there, it doesn't mean she loses everything. But they be passing like Rav Nachman and Rava, Mekachtos means she loses everything. She stayed married, but she doesn't get any ksuba if she was found to be a Ba'ula. But it was found to be a mukas eitz, so then she still gets the 100. According to Meir, she still gets 200. According to Rabbanan, she still gets 100. Tana Rabbanan, 3 lines in the bottom, 2 lines in the bottom. Concept. Now we're going to the end of the Mishnah. The end of the Mishnah said that if there was an asuin, means not only Eris, there was an asuin, he brought her into her house, but they didn't have, even if they didn't have relations, and then he dies or divorces her and she gets married again, she's not eligible for a 200 ksuba anymore. Once she had an asuin, she's not anymore called a virgin, even though she might be physically be a virgin. Here's the case. The first husband married her. Even a suin. He took her into her home for the suin. But there are witnesses that they never had the seclusion together. She was in the home. They had the chassan apart. L'shum was like the shame, for the intention.
With the intention of Nisuin.
Right. He brought her
And
into her
they're
home.
aiding that they did not
Seclude. Means she's in his house. It could be about a wedding feast. They made a wedding feast in the chassan's house. Everyone came, and this is his bride. That's
and
called
they're
a suin.
aiding that they never went into
They
seclusion.
never had seclusion. They always think someone was always there, so they never had relations.
Or they
or
went into
Even seclusion, but it wasn't enough time to have had a bia.
Okay.
A bia, whatever, it takes 5 minutes, and they were less than that. In other words, there's testimony that they never had bia, so she's a psula. She'll still be a, they didn't consummate the marriage yet. And then she got married a second time, whatever, he divorced her or he died, and then she's marrying again, and she's found not to be a basula. The second one doesn't have any complaint that she's not a basula. Sharei conservation, because the first one married her, made Nisuin. That's what the Mishnah says, that if the first one was Nisuin, even if she's a basula, still the second one doesn't have any complaint about that.
Sorry.
Sharei conservation. The first one made a marriage. The marriage means
But we have
Nisuin.
aiding.
Yeah, we think that it doesn't
We have
work.
aiding. It doesn't make sense.
Doesn't make sense. That the Mai says she's not a basula.
The
The Mai says she's a basula. He's saying the Mai says she should have been a basula,
and yet we're saying.
and now we find that she's not a basula. So this is
And he
this is
can't,
not what this is the same thing. What's the difference if she had an basula, she went into the house, they didn't consummate them, and have aided that she was never consummated.
Oh, she must
So
have had it.
it was before or something else, but
Something else.
but he said I expected a basula. That's the question. So-
It was a B and a P.
No,
I'm sorry?
Besula.
Was a B.
So Rashi says something that's hard to understand. Rashi and the bottom words of Rashi. So he comes to Rishon for all of Adash and Nivala. He should have known that she was Nivala. That's make Levi Yaakov is screaming. Yeah,
This was the end of the brisa.
Yes. And
What
that's
he's
how
saying.
can he say all of Ladash and Nivala if they aided that she was no yichud? So what's the question? How should he know she's a Nivala? She's a basula. So Taisa says on the next page that he should have realized that the Edom are saying it to make it sound nice for her. That's Taisa over here. Taisa, the third Taisa. The third Taisa says, the third Taisa, that's the same idea that he knew that she's a Be'ula. And even though there were Edom saying that she was not Nivala, he realized that it's not true because Sava de l'shvacha omim came. He thinks that they're not saying it in order to be Mishabeach the Kala, to call her a Basula, but everyone knows she's not a Basula because she had Nisuin. And even though the Edom are saying testament, that this is a harp shot. Taisa says a harp shot. Rashi also seems to say the same thing, that even though there's testimony they never had Yichud, but he realizes that if they had marriage, also she's considered a Be'ula, and she's actually a Be'ula. The others say a little bit easier than Taisa and Rashi, that the Ksuba Masayim, even if the Ksuba Masayim is only for being the first time marriage. And if there's Kedushin, it's nothing. But once it was in Nisuin, he came into the husband's house for the sake of marriage. So it loses the brilliance of being Basula, even though she might physically be a Basula, but she was in somebody else's house already, even if they didn't actually have relations.
Even we don't trust, does it mean we don't trust the Edom?
That's a Rashi and Taisa. But the Psalm I'm saying now is avoiding that we know the Edom means physically she might be a Basula, but the value of a Basula. The fact that she was taken into, that's what they seem to say. I didn't see it inside, but
how far does that go?
That was so far.
Who's saying this?
I'm sorry. So far we just said that what we say so far was a Bryce, right? What do we have so far?
We have the
Till that was a Bryce. Till the bottom word is a Bryce. And now Rabba starts talking. Rabba.
Oh, okay, we didn't start.
And this mamish is the case of Kansa Becheskas Psula, B'nim Sebula, goes back to the Sugi we just learned. He thought she's a Psula, comes out there, she's a Bula. Amar is also married. Kansa Becheskas Psula, B'nim says Bula, Yesh like Subamana, that you don't say the whole thing is off, you don't say it goes down to zero. This was mamish Sugi before, Rav Sheshes, Rav Amram, Kol Gedoli Ador, Rav Chia Bar Ravin, Rav Nachman, that was also we had a second ago. Machlokis, if Kansa Becheskas Psula, B'nim says Bula, loses everything, like the words Mekach but here it says Yesh like Subamana. That the Gemara seems to ask the kasha and says that even though we thought that she's a basula, means she's downgraded. Surely she's downgraded. She's downgraded for every reason. But he still thought that he's getting a basula.
According to the Brisa,
Yes.
we would assume, even though it didn't make sense, that she would get 200, right? By the second husband.
So the
He has no taina. Isn't that what we were saying? That would mean she gets 200.
no, if she gets
It says
100 only.
ein
No.
yachol liton.
That means that he can't say that I thought she was a basula. He wants to downgrade it more. He said I expected
And
a
there were
basula.
80, yeah.
And she was in a Nisuin. Nisuin takes her down to 100. A person who was once Nisua, if she gets married again, she's not anymore first quality. The
Well,
fact
we don't
that
know that, do we?
yes, the Mishnah says there's a difference between a Rusa and a Nisua. That once she was in a Sua, she doesn't get 200. But now there's another issue. He comes and says, "But you didn't tell me. You told me she's in a Sua, but you also told me she's a Basula. You told me she's in a Sua, but you also told me she's a Basula. And now she's not a Basula. So I didn't mean this. So I want to downgrade it to 0.
I see.
And it says not. It says she still gets 100. So
That's
that's what Rabba's deriving from here.
Okay.
That if he thought she's a Basula and she's not, she still gets 100,
Mhm.
which is what Sugi before. We had
Right,
before,
so
Rav
you
Sheshes,
know,
Rav
it's
Yoli
in
Ador.
Mukasais,
And we start
yes,
like Muka says, this is a Be'ula.
I understand, but it's not it wasn't consummated for
Yes, so we had before Machlokes Rav Sheshes and Rav
I think
Amram
reading
and
it.
Kol Gedoli Ador. They said Mekach Tos don't take it so literally, and it still is 100. But Rav and Rav Nachman, they didn't agree to that. So this seems to be a proof that Yesh Lak Subamana. Rav Ashi Yama Ba'am Lo Lemei Melachal Lesla Klal V'Shani Yocha Shawi Kansa Rishon. Rav Ashi says this is not as bad as the case of a Basula and a Be'ula. Here, the fact that he was in a Suan already, he should have known that she might be a Be'ula. Goes back to what Rashi and Taisa say, that this is worse. He says in a Su'a, a regular case, an innocent case, he thought she's a Basula, comes out she's a Bula, could be that's nothing. He says this I didn't mean. But here, he can't be so innocent. What is it called? The Tom. Don't be such a Tom. She was in a Su'a. Maybe Yaakov's going to ask again, they were Adim, but he should be smarter than that. So, like whatever the answer is going to be. That here, it could be worse because since it was in a Su'in, so he can't, there's no big difference between being in a Su'a and being a Ba'ula. The reason why he goes down is not because he can't say, wow, what a mistake. I thought she's a Basula. It's not such a big difference between being, if it was consummated or not, if she was already in the husband's house for Nisuin. The Gemara says the same thing. One more kasha. This kasha is like a little bit of a side point. But this seems very strange that there was nisuin, which we have Adam that they didn't consummate the marriage because there was no yichud. And then she got married a second time. And the second husband also had a kedushin and a nisuin. Second husband also. And then when he finally gets nisuin, she's a bula. So there's a very big chash here that maybe it happened in the marriage of the second one, that he should say that she was maybe. And Rashi says that since he's not coming to Bezdin because you tell him anyway, no tanis basulim, so it's not going to win in Bezdin, so he doesn't come to Bezdin. And then they don't make a big deal out of it. This woman was found to be a bula, and maybe there's always a chash. Maybe she was mazana during the Erison period. The second husband marries her now, and at the end he finds that she's a bula. When did it happen? So always we have the question: when did it happen? We have, it could be before, it could be during. That's one suffix, and then by Eshes Yisrael, maybe it was an onus. We always have this flexfeka by Kon. We have one suffix, but the fact that here something's very fishy, and the reason not that's very fishy here, the fact that he's not going to come to Bezdin because we tell him right away not going to gain anything by coming to Bezdin. So the issue doesn't get clarified, and we have more reason to be choshesh that maybe the woman was mizana during the Erison period of the second marriage. There would be such a chash, but the case is that the second one did like we do nowadays. We do kedushin and nisuin right away. There's no time in between. Like we do a marriage nowadays, we do everything and within 5 minutes. We do kedushin and then we do nisuin. So there's no chash that she was mizana during the Erison period of the second one. The rest of the Gemara now.
I don't understand that. So what did he just add?
That the case that we're going to say that there's
alter.
The case the case we're talking about is that the second one did kedushin and nisuin immediately.
Yeah.
So there's no interim. There's no place. There's no time in between the kedushin and nisuin to be choshesh that she was mizana during that time because there was no time in between.
And where does that leave us? He didn't have a claim then? I don't understand.
The question was that maybe we should make it a kana in a way that we should be able to be mevarer more. The way we're doing it now, we're just going to say that ein tanis basulim, this person who marries in a suah, this man married a woman who was once in the suah already. So we say ein tanis basulim. The Gemara is saying that it makes a dangerous situation that
because
there
she might be
mizana, and he's not going to be able to find out.
So we put them together. We do it.
So we say if you do eklusion and soon right away in the second marriage, then there's no chash. Otherwise, there would be a problem, and we'd have to verify more, something like that. The rest of the Gemara is going to be a repeat, mamash a repeat. Just instead of saying it the way we said it till now, it said it a little different. So far, we brought a brisa. At the bottom of the previous page, brought a brisa that said there was a edim shelo yichud yachdu, or there wasn't enough time to have yichud, that they should have had a bia. And that was the case where we have testimony that there was no bia, and still he has no time. If she comes out to be a bula, he has no time. Others say it on the Mishnah law without the brisa. The whole Gemara we just learned. Others have it. How you say had take had bake and a copy and paste that the whole sugya was said on our Mishnah, not said on the brisa, which is more or less the same thing. The Mishnah said the same thing. The Mishnah said if she is in a suin, even though she's a basula, how does it? That's to be the Mishnah, the bottom of the previous page. Where does it go? Right here. Anamaral, the first go, yeah, the one line up. Besula, Almana Gusha Vachalutza Menanisuin, Subasamana, Baintanis Masulim. That's the case. Thus, we didn't understand what's the case of a Nasua who's a Basula. If she's Nasuin, usually means that they come into the husband's house and they consummate the marriage. So the Bryce explained that it means that they were Adim, that even though there was Nasuin, but they didn't have Yichud. That was the Mishnah. But the Bryce explained it a little bit more. So here the Gemara says the same thing we just said, but instead of saying it on the Brisa, it's going to have the whole Kasha and Teretz on the Mishnah alone. Here goes Ika the Masnila. Ika the Masnila Masnisin. Some have the whole previous sugya that was said on the Mishnah, not on the Brisa. What does it say in the Mishnah? Basula Amana Gusha Vachalusa Minan Nasuin Ksebasamana Vein Latanas Basula. That's the whole Mishnah we just read, the bottom 2 lines of the previous page, that she was Nasuin, but she still says she's a Basula. So if he marries her, the kesuvos is only going to be a money, even though she says a basula. She's only eligible to a mana, and even if she's not found to be a basula, he has no claim. The question is, basula. What's the case? What's the case that she's a basula even though there's nasuin? They got married, but they didn't consummate the marriage. They had kedushin, they had nasuin. She came into the husband's house, but the Maisa didn't consummate the marriage. Now Rabbi said on this. So also marriage concept becheskas basula. When him says bula, even though he thought she's a basula, she was told that he was told that she's a basula. Not that they're Edim, here doesn't say Edim, but he was told that she's a basula, they never consummated the marriage, and comes out that she's a bula. Still, you don't take, goes down to nothing. Still, she's eligible for a money. And this Rav Ashi said, I could say that a regular, it's a mekach if you thought she's a basula, a regular case that he thought she's a basula, comes out she's a bula, maybe she doesn't get anything, mekach tos. Here he should have known better, because since they did marry, even though they tell him that she's a basula, he should have realized that it's possible not, and it's not such a mekach tos. Again, the same kasha, same whatever it meant before means over here also, that since there's no way to be Mavara now, so it could be that she was Mazana between the Eris and the son of the second marriage. That there was no time in between the Kedusha and then the son of the second one.
So it was nichush.
Let us worry. Let us worry, like Chashash. So that's the end of the Gemara said the same thing over again. That's instead of saying it on the Bryce, it says on the Mishnah. What's the difference? The case of the Bryce is just opening. There were Adim. There were Adim that said we know there was no Yich. The Mishnah doesn't say that, and you could say that it means. The family says, the woman says that he never consummated the marriage. He's not the first husband I had. He didn't consummate the marriage. I'm still a basula, but no Adim. Just she says so. So man the masin la brayse kosh ken amasnisin. Man the masin la masnisin avla brayse lo. Mishum the matziyam Allah ano Adim samchi. The question is if Rav Ashi would have said what he said, even if the case of their Adim means the case of Rav Ashi says that usually if you thought she's a basula and she's a bula, maybe she loses, maybe she doesn't get any ksuba. But here, he should have realized the big possibility she's a bula because it wasn't suing. Now that's okay if the family or the woman says that the marriage wasn't consummated and still a basula. He should have used his seichel and realized if they had a marriage, who says that there was not consummated? Maybe it was.
What's the last thing on Edim Samchi?
But in the case where there are Edim, the case of the bride says more extreme that there are Edim. Not only that she says that marriage never consummated.
Yes, it's not like a kol shekin.
So that case, right? That case to say that he should have realized that maybe she's a beula, like this is what bothers you, screaming the whole time that they're Edom. Of course, the Edom say truth; they're not going to lie, just to give a nice name to the color. So here, Rav Ashi might not have said that he could have realized. He should have realized that he was relying. He says, "I relied on the Edom." Edom said that she's a basula, so this is a mekathos. I don't want to pay ksuba at all because I had good reason to. In the case where the woman says she's a basula. Okay, you should have realized that even though she's a basula, if there was a marriage, there's a good chance that she was a bula and she's saying she's a basula. So you can't say it's so surprised I wouldn't have known. So that Rav Ashi might say over there that it's not a regular case of concept of cheskas basula v'nem sabuli. It wasn't such a concept of cheskas basula. But in the case of there were Edim that says she's a basula, then it's a regular case maybe. Then it's true. You could derive from here the concept of cheskas basula v'nem says bula. Maybe you see from here that it does not go down, doesn't lose everything. The Gemara that's not the sugya that says far. Oh, we can go further. If you have a couple of minutes, it's easy. The rest of the sugya is easy. If we could go, the halach seems to be like Rava. Back to the first sugya. That as far as Mukha states, even if you say that lo hikra, even if you did. But not a question is no hikabah. He didn't realize, he thought she's a basula, then he found a mukha seitz. Doesn't change anything. The difference between the mukha seitz doesn't make a difference. I can't say I didn't mean it. Both Rameh and Rabban. That's how the came out. And this sugya was talking about what was this sugya talking about? Concept of cheskas basula, v'nim says bula. So here it does go. Here the Gemara seems to say that the word mekachtos, even though the whole Gemara is going here, is there proof from here? Concept of cheskas basula, v'nim says bula. Does it stay 100? Over here, the Gemara said before, Rav Nachman and Rava seems to be halacha that the word mekachtos means that you lose it completely. So concept of cheskas basula, v'nim says bula, it does go down to nothing. I think that's the halacha. The Mishnah continues. He said in Yehuda that he used to do yichud after before the nisuin. They used to do like a small wedding to get them to know each other better, and they would do sheva brachas and they would do yichud, and they might have relations, and it's even expected they should have relations. If later on the husband comes and says, I'm married and she's a bula, we say, yes, we understand why she's a bula because you had relations with her. So he can't have any time anymore. Because it's even.
Did we have this Mishnah earlier?
We didn't have. I don't think we quoted the words exactly, but we quoted the idea. Maybe it doesn't say. Maybe we did have it before. Yeah, it does say. Testament based we had it. Here it is. if a person, a man, he had a meal by his father-in-law during the period of Erison in Yehuda, without having witnesses that they didn't have, that they did not go into seclusion. So he can't come and say after he gets married, she's not a basula.
Excuse me, when we assume if he ate there that he slept over there.
Yeah, that's what it means.
Needs to sleep over.
Okay, I mean, in other words, there are no Eidim that they did not have seclusion. So the assumption is that they did have seclusion. That's what it seems.
Yeah.
That was the minute you that they made seclusion. So therefore, what? No, yeah, but the point is not that they're doing wrong. The point is that they're doing right. That's what they knew. They used to give them.
Married.
Right, they originally have kedusha and married, and they're allowed. They even did Shabbat brachas. They did Shabbat. That's what we have. They did Shabbat brachas by the Erison in order to permit it. And then before it says that it's even considered like an ansadi and it's expected they're gonna have relations. And there's a mini wedding. Then later on, in a year, not in a year, whatever, we'll have later on a big wedding with a big
It's
party.
just like in modern times, if like to go to somebody's house for dinner doesn't mean you're sleeping over, but here it means that he's gonna be there.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Since it says, it doesn't just say in Yehuda, it says if the case was that he was by his father-in-law without Eidim, it says it's much like it's not always does it happen. It sounds like there are some places in Yehuda that they don't make this meal invitation that the chassan comes over and sleeps over, and it could be that they had yichud. It depends. If in Yehuda it happens sometimes, but not always. We could write from this that not all of Yehuda did this custom. Some places did, some places didn't. We learned in the Brisa, the Gemara is going to bring a proof that even in Yehuda it wasn't all over. The Yehuda in the land of Yehuda, they used to dafka seclude the chassan and kala before they went to the real chuppah. Yeah, before I made it sound like it's happening in the beginning, but a kedushin. Not necessarily. They just wanted them to get to know each other before the actual marriage, the big marriage. So before the but they would give them yichud and they should get to know each other. Kadesh leave a gospel, they should feel comfortable. But God law you wasn't came.
Usually I think of gas as something bad.
No, gas means comfortable. Like it could be that this person is laid gas. That means gas ruach means like balgaiva. But we talk about people that have a relationship, so they feel comfortable with each other.
And sometimes it's there. I think if Reuven is with Shimon's wife comfortable, that's not good.
Over there, not necessarily. It could be, depends on the relationship. It could be that people who they feel comfortable. It could be a relative that they feel comfortable and they eat often in the house and they feel comfortable. That means that they don't feel estranged. Usually a man and a woman, so they don't know each other at all. So there's a certain amount of hesitation. But then there's this level of comfort, a comfort zone that it could be, depends. Sometimes it's bad, but sometimes not necessarily. Depends on the situation.
I thought that gas like gross. Many times it's translated like that.
Yeah, but it depends on the connotation over there, on the context. So anyway, it says, they didn't have to have this custom, and they didn't do that. Like nowadays, they don't do such a thing of having yichud before. And nowadays, they can't because they don't have kedushin. They can't do it nowadays. There's no kedushin. Here, they were barely in
They'd be
kedushin.
together for a little bit.
What?
We're saying before the chuppah.
They would put them in yichud. And they could have had
Put them-
relations if they did.
Before the chuppah.
Before the chuppah, right? Before the big chuppah. Before
What's the big chuppah?
the real party, the official one, where all guests come. And they make the real,
They're not at the same time.
Sudas the suing. The Odisham of Yehuda, they come, there's a real chuppah. So here they used to give them a chance to
Are we
have
talking about
yichud.
before Nisun? No, we
Before
were
Nisun.
talking before Erusin.
No, Erusin is Erusin. Gave her a ring, or Kadeshusly, she became a married woman.
And
But
for
there's
and-
another year to wait.
And there's another year to wait, but
Right.
then before that year is over,
Right.
like probably
Uh,
right away.
2
maybe,
weeks, whatever, I don't know, a week
Then
before.
they get together.
Right, and that getting together could very
is
well
to
be
make
that
it
they're
so
going
that it'll have a gospel.
Right, right.
Okay. but
and it could be,
in
and it could
Gala,
very well
they
be that
didn't
they're
do
gonna have
that.
relations also at that time.
Yeah, and
The
Gala,
goal, they didn't have this whole thing, so
didn't
then
have that
they
thing.
they didn't make them secluded at all. A next case, Yehuda Barishon Hayumamid Islam Shnei Shushminin, Echad Lo Bechad Lo, Kadei Lamashmesh Esachasin Vesakala B'Shas Knesas L'Chapa. This sounds very strange. I don't understand the culture, but they wanted to make sure that neither the chassan or the kala are pulling some kind of deceitful thing. That means that the kala might not be a virgin, and she's going to somehow do some deceit to make that she's a virgin. That means she might bring in a cloth that has blood on it, and then she's going to be able to fake it as if the blood came from her.
Shoshvinen.
Shishvin is a friend, literally, and it means that they had somebody from the side of the chassan and the side of the kala that should make sure that there's no tricks happening. That they want to be able to verify if she's a basula or not after the first bia, they should be able to verify
I
his
see one
blood.
from his side, one from her side.
Right, so it's the one from his side is going to make sure that she doesn't do any deceitful thing, and the one from her side is going to verify that he doesn't do any deceitful thing. Means there might have been a cloth that has blood, and he's going to take it away and get rid of it, get rid
He's
of the
like
evidence.
Adim,
What?
like when we have Adim.
The Adim, no, Adim bias is nothing. Adim, they just stand outside the room that they had yichud for 5 minutes, and that's fine. So
No, I meant
they,
the Adim that follows somebody around the day of the wedding. That's nothing.
no,
No,
they're not
it's just
Adim.
Shvin you're talking about.
Yeah, that's just to accompany the chassan. He shouldn't be by himself. It shouldn't be
Mazikin.
right. That's.
So,
But here,
so
this
here,
was-
what is this? What
that-
are
that
they
these
doing
guys-
exactly?
They're,
These
they're,
friends.
they're making sure that no side is going to do anything deceitful. That the chassan is not going to.
When? I mean,
And the night of the wedding, after they get married and they have,
Then
and they're going home, they go home,
And they're going home, and these two
they come along,
friends
they
are
come
going along
along.
with them.
Right, and they make sure that there's no dirty work over there. That the husband might want to take away the evidence that she's a basula, and then come the next day, she's not a basula. They're gonna have the evidence that there's a cloth with
How
blood
can
and
they do
everything
that?
was successful, she's a basula. Or
Where,
the other
where
way,
are they?
they're probably,
They're not in the room.
they're down the room, they're outside the room, and before the room, they go to make sure that the
That's
color
clean,
didn't bring in
didn't
any
bring
any stained cloth over there. It sounds like what kind of people are they? If you're marrying him, don't you trust him for anything? And don't you trust her? Yeah, they're getting married and the first night, they think the other one wants the mamish.
Maybe it could be now.
No, this was a custom. They're just saying.
I don't know what it is. I don't get it.
I don't know if everyone did this. It could be
I-
people who are this type of people.
So they shouldn't get married to this kid. Why is to marry
They're
somebody
both
else?
not on the hospitality level, and that's a mistake.
Okay, so here it says they used to make, this was the custom in Yehuda, that they would check if they would, that they shouldn't be able to be deceitful about the basulim. What do you see from all this? Rashi just points out that the Gemara's proof is that this also was in Yehuda. But if you say in Yehuda, there's no tanis basulim because they used to have yichud before, so then what's this all about? The shishfina, what are they checking for? Even if there's no basulim, even if there is basulim, there's nothing because the chassan he made a bula already. That's what the Gemara means to prove that it wasn't every place in Yehuda.
Oh,
Also, Begadol Oisten came. They didn't do it in Gadol. Also, but that's the proof of the Gemara is the fact that in Yehuda there were some places that they used to have shushvinin to check that nobody's making any tricks. That shows that in that
not every
place,
time.
then every time that they have a yichud, if they have a yichud of the chazan and the kala, so then
They
it
wouldn't.
wouldn't make sense. There's a gears here now that my chavusha told me that not everybody has it. It's good. It's easy to take it out. It's easy to take it out because it seems to be repetitious. Here it says the Yehuda. I'll just put this in parentheses.
Well, yeah, I have
Some,
the-
you have, what do you have?
Yehuda Bershona, how you
Yeah, you have it. So it's hard to read. Let's just read it. It sounds like the same thing over again. Yehuda v'Rishana Yushishvin and Shein v'Beis Vayshachas Kali Shein Shah. Uvegal how you Osin came. I'm sorry. This is the end of the parentheses. I made a mistake. Not this one, but now the
And we're still in the.
right. It's the same
we're
thing
still
over
in the
again.
Brisa then?
Yeah, still the brisa, and it says that in Yehuda originally the Shishvin used to sleep in the house of the Chazan and Kala, and in the Gala they didn't. What did they sleep over there for? It says before that no dirty work is happening over there. So it's really repetitions of the second thing that it said. The brisa continues. If they didn't do this above custom, he can't tie her that she's not a basulim. That's the end of the brisa. Those last few words need explanation. Hey, what does the brisa mean to say? That if they didn't do this custom, there's no tanis basulim. The first case, that they had a custom of doing yichud, so it doesn't make sense. Not nog. If they did this custom that they had yichud, then there's no tanis. If they didn't do the custom, then there is tanis basulim. So the words don't make sense. Ella Seifa, it's going in the case about the cloth that they would come to investigate. So does it say kol shelo nog? He didn't do the minig. That's the more one. It should have said it simpler. Kol shelo mushmash mi. They should have said whoever wasn't investigated. Why does it say whoever doesn't do this custom? It should have just continued where it left off. It says the custom was lemashmesh. Lemashmesh means to investigate. So it should have just continued. Whoever didn't investigate, so then there's no tanis b'sulim because it could be that the chassan stole the cloth. It was a cloth. Ella seifa kol shelo mushmash mi. Amar Abaye lo lemaresha utani kol shenoch. Culture now. You change it, you're right. Then instead of saying culture alone, no, case culture now. Whoever did the custom of having yichud, then the chassan has no tanis b'sulim because he might have been the one who was born. Amalei Rav of culture alone, no, it doesn't say that. It doesn't say you can't change the word. Culture alone, no, meaning golul, big golul, meaning Yehuda big golul, and yachal litin tanis b'sulim. We just finished saying that in golul they didn't have this custom, and therefore there is yes tanis b'sulim. That's only if they act like a Galilee. But if they acted like a Yehuda, they did in Yehuda, they did in Golul, the minig of Yehuda to have yichud, so then also Golul doesn't have any yachalitim. The other possibility, the Gemara said you could change the girsa instead of saying kol shelo no, kol shelo mushmash. Whoever wasn't investigated in the case where they might have a deceitful chashash. So you have to take care. There shouldn't be any deceit. And if you didn't do that, so then you're not assured that there wasn't deceit that was done, and you wouldn't be able to tie in tanas b'sulam. Adkan. Sorry for going overtime. Thank you. Motzei Shabbos, Bez Hashem HaChavus will be saying this year at 9:30 on Zoom. Yashikar, everybody. Thank you. Have a good Shabbos.
Good Shabbos. Have a good Shabbos, everyone.
Thank you.